Hi guys, today we'll be making apple bread pudding and I'll go over the recipe. We're going to be using sugar, heavy whipping cream, salt, 4 large eggs, cinnamon, regular milk, 2 apples preferably golden, half a loaf of white bread, and vanilla extract. One of the most important parts to this recipe is that we're going to be using a wide bakeable glass dish so our apple bread pudding can be kind of circular. Measurements are as follows. Start off by preheating your oven to 350 degrees. Okay, so I have my white bread loaf cut into little bits like this, so we're going to be only using about half a loaf. So what we want to do is you got to start off by skinning the bread, so none of it comes in your mouth. We only want the white part of the bread. Okay. Once peeled, you want to cut your bread into cherry-sized pieces. About this size will do. And every time you cut into a cherry-sized piece, line it on a cookie tray. And repeat the same step for all the rest of the bread loaf. Okay. Now that we have our bread loaf peeled and cut into cherry-sized pieces, we're going to put it in our 350 degree preheated oven. And we're going to let it toast for 10 minutes. Okay, so for our next step with our 2 apples, you're just going to peel them. That's it. Now that we have both of our apples peeled, what we need to do is we need to cut them in cubes or cherry-sized pieces. Now, there's no specific way of cutting them. No, there's no fancy way. The main goal is that you cut these apples into cubes or around the pieces the size of the bread. So, we'll come back to that. Okay, so your apples should be like this, in little cubes or bite-sized pieces, and we're just going to let this sit aside. And let's get started on our custard. Now that 10 minutes have passed, let's take our bread out the oven. Okay, you should notice that it's completely normal if your bread chunks become brown or if they become hard. It's all going to soften out when we mix it in with the apples and custard. So let's just let that sit to cool. Okay, so using my KitchenAid, we're going to mix 2 egg yolks and 2 egg whites. Along with that, we're going to add 1/3 cup of sugar, 1/4 teaspoon salt, and my favorite, 1/2 teaspoon ground cinnamon. Okay, and we're gonna put it in our mixer. And it's urgent that if you are gonna mix it by hand, you should use a whisk. But if you're gonna do it by stand mixer, use the whisk attachment. Okay. I'm gonna lift the bowl up, get a shot. Let's plug in our KitchenAid and start the mixer on a low speed of stir. Let's come back when it's done mixing. Okay, once the egg and cinnamon is perfectly incorporated, just lift our bowl down. We are going to add 1 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream. Let's add 1 3/4 cup of heavy whipping cream into our mixture. Nice. We're also going to add half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Raise the bowl back into place and set it on speed 2 so it can mix. Okay, so turn the mixer on low. So while it's stirring, we're going to add 1 3/4 cup of regular plain milk. So while it's mixing, just add milk. Okay, let's let that sit for a while so everything is incorporated. Okay, so after around 3 minutes, our wet ingredients should be fully mixed. Just take off our attachment. Okay, so this is how your mixture should look once it's fully incorporated. This is going to be our custard. So let's move on to our next step. Okay, so pour only half of your custard mixture into the bowl. Okay, once half of it is in the bowl, what we're going to do is we're going to add all of our chopped apples. And along with our apples, we are going to add our bread, so everything can get absorbed. Okay, now that we have all of our bread pieces and apple pieces into the pan, in the bowl I should say, add the rest of the custard on top. Okay, once this is done, using a rubber spatula or anything you feel like, pat it down so all the pieces on top get some of that custard. And it is normal if there is a lot of custard, that's the goal, but once we bake it, it's all going to be sucked in and there won't be any more liquid. So this is good. So let's just poke everything in and make sure it has enough custard in it. So once all the bread pieces have been dabbed in by your rubber spatula, you're just going to seal and let's put it in the fridge. And just let it rest in the fridge for about 20 minutes so all the custard could soak into the apple and bread. Okay, so let's take our apple bread pudding out the fridge. It's been 20 minutes. Okay. Let's zoom in on the pudding here. So, as you can see, it's all been absorbed. There still is some liquid at the bottom, but all this bread and apple have absorbed into a custard. So, let's give it a final patting with our rubber spatula. It's time for it to go in the oven, but without the guard on top. So, let's put it in the 350-degree oven. And we're just going to let this cook for 50 minutes. Okay, so it's been 50 minutes, so let's take our apple and put it out the oven. So this is how it looks. So you should let it cool for about 5 minutes, and optionally I recommend you put powdered sugar all over it, and that's your apple bread pudding.